Do you really love to make music? But do you also really hate the mixing process? Because it always takes you such a long time and there are so many choices to be made that you never really see the finish line? I know I sure did. But have no fear, because here are some simple tips that will turn every mix into a banger.
Quick disclaimer, these are just tips, no bangers guaranteed. Results may vary depending on your vibes and caffeine levels.
So I've been doing a lot of music mixing over the years, and yeah, I admit it, I'm still kind of a noob. I still feel like I only know the tip of the iceberg. And there's so much information out there about mixing techniques and effects and third-party plugins that it can sometimes feel very overwhelming and hard to choose which ones to use on your mix. And that's why I wanted to create this video, to talk to you about the real basic stuff that no one ever wants to talk about. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is actually the stuff that is most important to your mix. And for some reason, it's the stuff that's often overlooked by those plugin fetishists and mixing gurus and whatnot. I got a lot of really great comments from you guys about my 7-day album, the album that was made in just 7 days, that it sounded so good. And I was really surprised and very grateful for that. And I wanted to show you guys some of the techniques I used. So without further ado, let's dive in. These are some of the tips and tricks I wish I knew when I started on my own mixes. And please note that I'm not a mixing or mastering professional or of any kind. I'm just a regular guy who likes to make songs and doesn't want to be dependent on a producer to make my songs sound good. So let's start with the first tip. Okay, come on, you know this already, right? Well, let me repeat it once more. Because the volume of your separate tracks is one of the most important parts of your mix. In fact, with every step, with every effect layer that you add to your track, chances are you'll have to readjust that small little volume knob to make it sound good in the mix. So that's my main advice here, do it often and experiment with it. And to show you what I mean, I have some of my recently recorded tracks here and all the volumes are just set to 0. And just listen to what that sounds like, right? So yeah, the volumes are all basically at the max level. And yeah, it sounds like pure shit.
Sunday, daytime, hot night, poolside.
And this is actually one of the many things I see people do with their tracks. They tend to turn the volume way up because they want to hear every instrument like really loud for some strange reason. So wrong. Because it's actually the balance between the louder and the softer instruments that brings more dynamics to your mix. So don't be afraid to turn down a certain element to have it really blend in with the other instruments. Or turn up another element to really have it pop out. Volume is one of those aspects that you don't really think about. It's so entangled in every step of the mixing process that it's often overlooked. And as we adjust the volume of these tracks a little bit, let's hear the difference. Sounds a lot better, right? It feels like a nice blend between the instruments and now the vocals come.
Sunday, daytime, hot night.
Still, there is a lot to be done in terms of increasing the dynamic range of this track. Which brings us to simple tip number 2. Panning is the second super important aspect to make your mix less cluttered. It determines where your instruments are located in the stereo mix. And it's actually one of the first things I apply when starting my mix. And you might say, yeah, of course, man, I use panning all the time. Well, chances are you're using it all wrong. Because what most newbies tend to do is pan stuff, but keep it fairly close to the middle, like this. For some reason, no one wants to venture towards the edges of the stereo spectrum, too afraid they might fall off. Oh, not too far, not too far. Oh, just, no, keep it in the middle. Keep it in the middle now. Come on. But here's the kicker. It actually helps to declutter your mix by panning things hard left or right. So to illustrate this, I have two guitars in my mix that are basically in the same frequency range. And the best thing to do with this is have one guitar turn all the way left and the other guitar turn all the way right. So here's what it sounds like when they're panned in the middle. And here's what it sounds like when I pan them hard left and right. And it instantly opens up the mix. So if I apply this on the entire mix, like, we're gonna pan this here, right? I'm gonna keep the drums and the bass in the middle, the vocals as well, but now we have the guitars panned hard left and right. The main vocal stack that I have, I'm going to keep it in the middle, but I'm going to pan it like -10 and +10. This is the low vocal, this is the high vocal. I doubled this. Keep it a little bit in the middle. Then we have the background vocals. Like we already did this. We're gonna put it like -30 and +30. We're gonna do that for all the background vocals so they take in the space between the edges and the center. A little Hammond piano, let's pan this like 25 to the right. And you really want to make sure that every instrument, especially the instruments that have kind of the same frequencies, have a very distinctive space in the stereo field. And it's actually funny to hear that early recording equipment and mixing consoles had limited panning capabilities, especially in the area when stereo audio was first introduced in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Many early systems only allowed for hard left, center, and hard right panning. So having not many of these options actually made it easier for audio engineers to just make a choice. Like, you either put things in the middle, or you either put things on the right or on the left. And limited as they may have been, this actually led to the creative use of instruments and left a lot of room to breathe in the mix. So now I'm going to apply this feature on my own mix and show you how much it clears up by just using some simple hard right and hard left pans. Sounds way more open, you know, and the guitars are not interfering with their frequencies.
Sunday, daytime,
Every instrument, every voice occupies a certain space within the stereo field, and this makes it really clear.
so white, we find
Which leaves us with my third simple tip. Sure, you can fix your frequency problems with all kinds of plugins, the basic ones being EQ and compression. But you don't really have to if you use the right instruments in your initial recordings. For instance, a regular drum set will basically cover the entire spectrum of frequencies, from the low kick drum to the high hi-hat. The bass guitar will cover the low frequencies across the track. A guitar will cover the medium frequencies, and so on. So the thing you want to look out for is that your track uses its instruments and their corresponding frequencies wisely. That means you shouldn't have too many instruments playing on the same frequency level. Just think of it like a classical orchestra, where every instrument has a natural timbre that doesn't necessarily interfere with the other instruments, making it possible to create a clear live mix without really mixing. Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. So yeah, try to think of it like a classic orchestra where every instrument plays its part in the grand scheme of things. So here's simple tip number 4. Now, I don't really want to go into EQ or compression, even though they're two of the most basic mixing techniques. But there's one simple EQ trick that I want to show here. Now, if you don't want some of your instruments or frequencies to interfere with one another, you can always opt for a simple high or low pass filter. It's an easy compression trick that doesn't cost you much time, compared to neatly figuring out all the interfering or annoying frequencies like a needle in a haystack, like this approach I'm showing you right now. So simply apply a high or low pass filter, or both, on your instruments and just shove it around a little bit to see how much it changes the sound. For instance, you can use a high pass filter on your bass guitar to filter out those high annoying frequencies or hums that really don't do anything to it. Or you can use a low pass filter on your solo guitar to filter out the bass frequencies so they don't interfere that much with the bass guitar. Or you can use a combination of both on your rhythm guitar to really make those medium frequencies stand out. Also, I often use a high-pass filter on my electric guitars to make the sound a little bit less bright and more warm. So here's simple tip number 5. Yes, I know it sounds really cheesy, but if you keep this in mind all the time, your mixes will probably sound a lot better. I know this final tip really speaks for itself, but I found this to be really difficult in my early music career. I had the tendency to stuff my mixes with as many sounds as possible, fill in every space or silence with a sound. What turns out, it actually makes your mix so much worse. You see, by adding too many layers, the fatness of the mix gets lost. The more you put in, the more muffled it becomes. That's because too many frequencies are interfering with each other, and it's actually what happens in the empty spaces between that makes your mix sound fuller and more interesting to the listener. Sure, you can put in as many layers as you want at first during the recording process, but really try to reduce them when you start your mixing. And see which ones are vital to the song. Often you can just leave a lot of layers out and it will actually make your song better. It will make it more fat, it will make it more spacious if you just let it breathe and use less instruments. And just think about it. Some of the best songs ever made were just a few instruments that all played an important part in making the complete song. I instantly think about the White Stripes song. I mean, how many instruments is that? Only 2, right? It's crazy. So yeah, less is more. Always keep that in mind. A song doesn't need much as long as the foundation is good. It also makes your mixing process so much easier and faster. So there you go. These were some of the simplest mixing techniques that you can apply to your songs to make them sound so much better. And maybe soon I'll do a deep dive into the more advanced mixing techniques I use. But all in all, I have to say that, even after many years of trial and error, it's usually still these simple things that make the most difference. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed these tips, and last but not least, I'll show you the end result of the song that we tried to mix right there. Hopefully by the time this video comes out, you can stream it on all streaming services. It's called Cinnamon Dreams. This is the album cover. Thanks for watching, and keep on making the music you love.